Episode 6 is easily the most exciting episode of the series so far. Pretty much from the beginning until the end, there is either action, or at least a strong sense of tension. You get a confrontation between Jalkar and the Voltaris, the reveal of the Necro Base, and finally ending in the battle at Zarya. Hey everyone, David here, Director of Songs of War, and welcome to the Episode 6 Behind the Scenes. This one's going to be a bit of a long one, as I've got a lot to talk about this episode, so let's get started. The episode begins with Jalkar meeting with the Voltaris. This is interesting for a few reasons. Up until this point, we didn't really know why they stole the dragon egg. We knew it was to make some money, but I bet most people weren't really thinking, who was buying it from them. The fact that it was the Voltaris starts to show that all these different storylines that seem to be a little more independent are actually becoming a bit more connected. Right from the beginning of the confrontation, we wanted a lot of tension between these two groups. They're both villains, and it's always interesting when you have these interactions between antagonists. They each have their own goals, which are often at odds of each other. It was scenes like this where my writer Badger really helped bring out that tension. She helped rewrite a lot of this dialogue here to make the entire confrontation seem more heated. From an animation standpoint, we also tried to kind of match this tension. The Voltaris slowly begin, appearing behind Jalkar and Grim as they get in position. Grim sets the egg down as if he's kind of freeing up his hands to fight, and Jalkar even reaches down and touches his blade, which Zenaida takes note of. We also get a tiny bit more information on Grim here. Some people were confused as to whether his species was named the Reaper, or why there was this kind of Grim Reaper thing going on. It's not his species is still unknown. I imagine his name was just Grim, and he just happened to use a scythe, so then people were kind of giving him the nickname the Reaper because of that. This fight was animated by Skyfall, and one thing he's really good at is doing that cool time dilation. Right as everyone charges in, Grim does this really cool maneuver by pushing one Voltaris away, then hitting the next one up into the air as everything slows back down. It's always fun for me to see these scenes because the script always just has some basic sentence like, they fight. So I get to enjoy watching these fight sequences come together as you do. I think Skyfall also did a really good job with understanding the characters of Jalkar and Grim. There's a point where Grim has locked weapons with one of the Voltaris, and another one runs up and kind of attacks him from the side, and he has to kind of hold one leg up to keep that one away. Something about that is always it's funny seeing Grim, this rather small character, trying to hold off two enemies at once and getting kind of all twisted around between them. And finally we get to see a song used again. It's been a while since we've actually seen the songs show up, and this was certainly one of the more visually impressive ones. You can start to get an idea from this scene why Ardoni don't just go around using songs all the time. The one that Zenaida uses is so destructive that you can't really use it around your allies, so he only does it once he's the last one standing. The design for the song was basically a big energy vortex that prevented anyone from really attacking, but also caused a lot of damage to those who might get close enough. I began working on this effect, and kept feeling like it was missing things, so I just started layering more and more elements. First I started having these little stones get picked up and caught in the vortex. Then I wanted to see stones actually being pulled out of the ground, but even that wasn't enough. I wanted to see vegetation being ripped off the grass and added into the swirl. I even started bending the sugarcane as if it was being sucked towards it. And then as he dies, I gave it this kind of poof back outwards, and all the built-up energy kind of releases. Jalkar using his blade here was once again showing his skill with such a simple and small weapon. By throwing the blade counter to the flow of the vortex, it quickly wrapped inwards and took out Zenaida, once again showing that songs aren't really that overpowered as they may seem. There were two things I established here that hadn't really been seen before. When Zenaida dies, his lights all turn out, and his song actually forms beside his dead body, as Thalius had mentioned in an episode 5 on the balcony. It was important for me to show this happening here, to kind of prepare everyone for what was going to happen at the end of the episode. Designing the song formations was actually quite easy at this point. By now I've been getting more and more practice with these types of VFX, and whenever doing any of the effects related to the songs, I'd always start by using at least some existing materials from one of the other songs. That way everything kind of has this consistent look to within each of the 4 orders of songs. There's a nice little detail I'm not sure if everyone noticed with Sidious. I brought the strength of his lights way down and added a little bit of kind of random wiggle to it, as if he's kind of flickering between life and death. There's a nice little detail I'm not... Come on, truck. Go away. I brought the strength of his lights way down and added a little bit of random wiggle to it, as if he's kind of flickering between life and death. I thought that made sense for the Ardoni when they're very injured. Maybe it's what happens if you do too many songs and aren't prepared. Is that truck gonna drive off or what? Go away. I thought that made sense for when Ardoni are gravely injured. Maybe it's what happens if you do too many songs and aren't prepared for it. Either that, or you just need to plug the Ardoni back in and charge them for a bit. So this scene took place in Tambora Crags. This is one of my own builds mostly. The name is a reference to an old PS2 game I liked. Curious if anyone will know which. Let me know on Discord if you think you know. The look of the location, however, was actually based off an old sci-fi environment model that I created like 12 years ago when I was in 8th grade using Google SketchUp. I had this idea for a canyon with vines going across, and the vines had these bright, vibrant colored leaves. That way the sun would shine through the leaves and the color would kind of bleed down to the bottom and it'd look really pretty down in the bottom. Unfortunately, I didn't think we'd really be able to do that within Minecraft. You can't really get these big leaves and get the kind of lighting we're looking for. So we lost the leaves, but the rest of the design stayed pretty true to my old model. The area has a lot of flowing water kind of in and out during the rains. Currently it's a little bit dry here, so we see a lot of exposed gravel beds. When coral was added to Minecraft, shortly before the scene was animated, we went back into the set and added some dry coral around to really show that this place is often underwater. After all that, we move back to Lucan, who is undercover exploring the tunnels. When he gets attacked by zombies, he realizes that he has the Wither skull on him and he tries to control the undead, like the necromancers do, but to no avail, until Zarya arrives. I talked a lot with my co-director and writer during the writing process as to how exactly these necromancers were controlling the undead. We thought about many of the different senses and how each could be used. So Zarya first, he creates this loud metallic sound which seems to stun the undead temporarily, followed by a scrape sound and a brief visual trail of bright light, and then displays the Wither skeleton skull. Even the idea that the necromancers wear these skeletal masks and is to make them less identifiable to the undead, and then maybe they even smell more like zombies, whereas most viewers were probably just thinking that they were just trying to look creepy. Now we finally get our first good look at the indoctrination of the zombies. The indoctrination sound was mainly choir whispers layered on top of each other. We thought it was fitting to be hearing like these voices in your ear for when they're being indoctrinated, as if the whispers are kind of commanding them subtly. You may have also noticed that we use this sound very, very quietly and earlier in the season when we'd show the Wither skull, as if it kind of has that effect all the time, even on everyone, zombie or not. And then we get to the Necro Base. This was a fun set. Kronos made this build early on, and the idea was for this, it's in this volcanic zone to ward off explorers so the necromancers wouldn't be discovered. We thought this made sense from the story perspective, but simultaneously it gave it that kind of classic evil look. If there's one faction in Songs of War that fits the typical bad guy, it's them. It's the necromancers. This was a scene that Red animated, and there's an incredible amount of animation detail in the zombie pits. There's a zombie banging his head against a wall, one kind of trying to climb out, and there's even a skeleton who eats a piece of the meat being thrown down to them, but it just kind of falls through him. We even built these hanging cages for the creepers as if to keep them at a safe distance from everything else in case they exploded. And finally, we see our boy, the Necrolord. Many viewers will recognize his skin as the Dreadlord from Mega Walls and Animation Life. We basically took the skin and removed all the color out of it. We also see that he has this Necro Staff, which went through a lot of designs. The script called for simply a Wither skull on a stick, so I thought I'd just put it on a fence post. I then realized how bad that looked, so I tried putting it on some kind of branches. That also looked dumb. Then I had this cool idea where the Wither head was still attached to its spine, which would explain why the head was still partially alive and able to possess so much more power than just the normal Wither skeleton skulls. I knew from the beginning of my work on Songs of War that I was going to need a better way to do fire effects. So many different scenes called for a lot of fire, and the fight in the burning Zarya needed to be covered in almost entirely fire to set the mood. And doing actual fire simulation would have just been way too slow to set up, way too slow to render, and just too large of a cache size. So it was during this same episode, the Necro Base, that I finally began some of my own research and tried to create some smaller, more efficient flame effects, which are simply 2D planes! It's got over 16 times the detail. Just as with the light rays, I continued to improve these flame effects during the series with all new lighting, rendering, and fire technology, and because we skipped the Zarya burning scene initially, by the time we came back to it, we actually had the flames looking pretty much the best they did in the whole series, and it all just works. We also wanted to get better lava, just as we had the nice water shader. The Necro Base is a perfect test for this as well, as it had all the big strands of lava flowing down from the ceiling. I did some tests and quickly got something I liked with the lava. I also like when scenes transition between each other in a kind of smooth way, and there was a nice one here where the flames of the Necro Base and like the lava kind of become the flames of burning Zarya. This was one of the most anticipated but also intimidating scenes to work on due to its significance. This was one of the last few Season 1 scenes to be finalized, with the exception of a bit in the finale, and the fight here was done by Zillion. During the fight, we're introduced to Thalios' Aggressium song, the Shockwave. Some people are probably wondering, why didn't he use this in Episode 1 against Tigrin? I kind of have two different possible answers, both could work. My first thought is the whole concept of songs in battle, and because of their charge-up times, and the power it takes to use them, something like a shockwave, which is meant for crowds, might have just been a big waste of energy on one person, and you might have, killed yourself while trying to do it. The other theory that I actually think makes more sense is that Thalios only had his Mobilium song on at the time of Episode 1, but then, based on what happened, afterwards he probably went and got the Shockwave song in case he had to get in a fight again. And there are reasons you'll see later in the series why he wouldn't want to keep all the songs on him at all times. And once again, Tigrin confronts Thalios. We really see just how twisted Tigrin can be, as he seems to just have no regret for what he did. You'll see many villains later in this series that have a lot more justification and a little more kind of multifaceted, but Tigrin, I imagine he takes pleasure in all his dark deeds. He resents the Ardonian, what they did to him in the past, or his clan in the past at least, but he goes way beyond revenge and kind of takes personal enjoyment in it. And like I mentioned in Episode 1 behind the scenes, these villains here are to be feared. When someone like Tigrin shows up, you should be worried, and this is exactly why. The music for Thalios' death, just like the scene, was one of the most intimidating, probably second only to the prologue, I think. What worked real nice, though, was that it wasn't just a tragic death song, but it blended into this more sinister Voltaris vibe at the end to show you that, you shouldn't just be sad here, but also afraid of the Voltaris, who are now even more powerful, that Thalios is out of their way, who was really the only one standing up to them when no one else would. This was also the first episode that didn't cut straight to the to be continued, but actually went to black first. After the shock of what just happened, there's this brief moment where you're wondering, is there more? Please let there be just one more scene. But of course, there isn't. There's no miracle, there's no happy surprise. When someone dies that you care about, it doesn't always have that big dramatic conclusion. It can just kind of happen suddenly and leave you with an empty feeling. And I feel that little addition, that little pause before that final text appears, just really helps reinforce that final moment. And that wraps up this episode of Songs of War Behind the Scenes. I just also want to mention that the skins of almost all the characters in this series are available. I see a lot of people asking about them in the comments. We have them over on our Discord. The Discord link is in the description. If you join the Discord, in the Songs of War posts section, we have pretty much all the skins get there posted as soon as they're added. We also have one of our skin designers has one of the Minecraft skin sharing websites where she puts most of the skins up there as well. I'll probably have that linked in addition to the Discord in case you don't want to join the Discord. So the skins are available. Check them out. Feel free to wear them. Feel free to modify them and customize them however you're liking. Also, I do have skin tutorials on my personal channel. You can, I'll link that as well, I guess. You can check out, I have like an Ardoni skin tutorial, Felina skin tutorial. People have been asking for like how to make a zombified skin tutorial and some other species coming up. So check all that stuff out, enjoy the skins. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening to Behind the Scenes. I will see you next episode. So that was almost about to be it, but I actually forgot to mention there's even something more important to mention, so I'm going to mention now, is that we're coming up in a really cool time for our Patreon. This coming month is going to be pretty much the best month to pledge to our Patreon if you've ever wanted to pledge. Not only do you have, if you pledge to Redstone or above, you have the access to Songs of War Episode 6, 7, well, okay, at this point, Episode 7, 8, 9, and 10 early access if you become Redstone this coming month in March. But on top of that, for the Songs of War Episode 10 credits, the big credits at the end of the season, we're going to have every single patron who's pledged during the month of March in the full credits. So if you want to get your name in the credits for as low as even $1, if you become the $1 patron, you will still be in the credits under the coal section, which is a kind of unique thing we're doing right now for this 1 month only. Well, I say this month, although this video might come out still in February. But if this video comes out in March, it's going to be during the month of March. So anyone who's pledged in March, whether you're a new patron or an old patron who's still pledging, if you're pledged in March, you will have your name in the credits. So that's a cool little thing. Check out our Patreon. We've got information on that on the Patreon. And yeah, hope to see some cool new pledges. The reason we're doing this is we're really trying to encourage a few more people pledging to help fund second season, to make season 2 a possibility. And as you'll see, as these last few episodes of the season roll out, you'll see why we really want to get to a season 2 and 3. And pledging to our Patreon will help support that. And you'll get things like your name in the credits this season. And if you go up to Redstone, you'll get all these next few episodes in early access. You'll get them a day early. And if you go even higher, you'll get your name in all the episodes coming up and whatnot. So that's all cool. Check out our Patreon. Now that's all. Thanks for watching. Now I'll see you next episode. Goodbye.